Hi, have I mentioned that I have lots of rules of thumb about wildlife photography? One of them is he who waits the longest gets the picture. It's a rule of thumb I sometimes wish I'd never heard of. I've been on this beach now for several hours, and as it always seems to be these days, it's been very windy, although fortunately now the wind is actually dying down as we're coming towards the end of the day. It's actually been quite successful, but I've had to wait a long time. There's Mediterranean gulls here. They're quite common in this area, in the Great Yarmouth area. You come onto any of the beaches at Great Yarmouth, there's black-headed gulls and Mediterranean gulls, common gulls, herring gulls. It's a bit tricky to tell them apart. When I first got here, I had to stare at them for a few minutes with the binoculars, trying to remind myself of the differences. The bill is quite distinctive, but there's plenty here. You've just got to pick them out amongst the black-headed gulls, and they're very used to people, and people are throwing bread for them, so they're quite tame and approachable. But it was just getting them into a nice situation. You can photograph a bird anywhere, so I started off in the middle of the beach. But photogenically, it's a bit lacking. You really want them down by the surf. So after I got a few pictures, I just sat down here and just waited and waited, and eventually black-headed gulls, Mediterranean gulls, common gull and herring gull, got all four come down into the surf, and that's a much nicer picture. This is where you want them, far more attractive. Bit of water washing up on the beach, and in places some quite nice stones as well. Much better than out there. And that's always my attitude to photography. I find the nice location where I want the bird. I don't go and chase the bird. I don't want to go and photograph the bird in the middle of the beach. I want it down there. So I wait until the bird comes into the more attractive place. The last time I photographed the Mediterranean gull here, a few years ago, it was the 3rd of March, and they were already pretty well in their full breeding plumage, when they look far more attractive. But this year I'm only a week earlier, and they're still very much in their winter plumage. So this is where I don't really want to photograph the bird, where it's just surrounded by sand. But of course you can always improve that by getting down to floor level. Then you bring a bit of sky into the picture and you've added colour to it, and I'm happy with that. You can go up a little bit higher onto your elbows, and then you don't get so much out of focus foreground. But it's easier to do that for stills photography than it is for video. Video, you really do need a tripod head to keep it steady. It's quite a crowded beach here. This is a Friday afternoon, so not too bad. It'll be worse tomorrow. And of course the people are disturbing the birds, and people get into your background from time to time, but you've got to set that against the fact it's only because there's a lot of people here that the birds are so tame and approachable. So you just got to put up with the fact there's people around, and some dogs coming now, so these birds are about to go. They're nowhere near as tolerant of dogs as they are of people. So from a distance, you do have to stare hard through the binoculars to try and work out which is which. This is a black-headed gull, has a much thinner bill, whereas the Mediterranean gull's bill is thicker and has that sort of black band around the end of it. In the breeding plumage, it goes much redder. Once the gulls had moved towards the tide line, it's time to lie down again, get that low angle. A common gull. Easy enough to identify with its yellow legs and yellow bill. And I often think it's one of the most attractive of the gulls as well. And this is the black-headed gull with the red bill, red legs, still in its winter plumage, and the herring gull. Now here's the bird that I was really after, the Mediterranean gull. Over the years when I had my Canon equipment, I had the 800mm, the 600mm, the 500mm, and I always cursed having a fixed prime lens. It's so much better when you can zoom back. So I really appreciate having the 200 to 600 zoom, and I hope I never have to use a prime lens again. You miss so many pictures with a prime lens when the bird comes too close to you. And I love having the bird in the surf, all that foamy water swelling around its feet. The other thing I really appreciate about the Sony A1 is the 30 frames per second. So when you're getting birds in flight, you get the upbeat position with the wings, the downbeat, the midbeat, every single wing position, you capture it. And you don't get that at, let's say, 18 frames per second that I get with the Olympus camera. So 30 frames per second has proved very useful. I'll just show you a handful of pictures I took on a previous visit, which I say was 1 week later, so this was the 3rd of March. So we've got a black head now, much redder bill. And it's quite a windy day, yet again I remember, because the seaweed was blowing about in the wind, and this bird caught it. And having caught that, he caught some more, which made him look rather comical. Now you may have noticed in some of the pictures of the gulls there was sandling running around. One of the easiest waders to photograph because they're just so tame and approachable, but rather fast. Keeping up with them can be difficult, especially when you start doing video, because although the Sony A1 is brilliant for stills photography and the autofocus, it's not quite there with video, and I really struggle to follow them. They spend most of the time on the tide line, following the waves up and down the beach. When I'm doing video, sometimes I'm manually focusing, sometimes trying the autofocus. Neither is perfect. And it doesn't become easier to autofocus or manually focus when you're doing it in slow motion, but it does mean you haven't got to get it right for such a long time. If you can get 2 seconds in focus and you're filming at more or less 5 times slow, then you've got 10 seconds worth of film. And if you can get it right for 4 seconds, you've got 20 seconds worth of film. And typically 20 seconds is about as long as I need for a shot. And I really enjoy looking at these birds in slow motion. Thanks for watching.